Being the April 21st meeting of the Simsbury Zoning Commission, I don't see Josh sitting there. Does anybody have any? Usually he's here if he's coming, so okay. We'll call Josh absent. But Dagny, if you're up for it, you can sit in for Kate. Right. Okay. You ready? Okay.
My trial
These
run.
are to be called on to.
She's an alternate.
Okay, so the first order of business is the minutes of the meeting of April 7th. So, I hope everybody had time to read this. It wouldn't have
Took a
taken too
while.
long, right? But, does anybody have any comments, questions, additions, corrections for the minutes to April 7th?
I abstain, I wasn't here.
Thank you. Right. So we'll have a total of 5 votes. So there has been no suggestion of corrections, additions, any form of change to these minutes. So could I have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the minutes from the April 7th, 2025 regular meeting.
Second.
And a second. Who was the second? Oh, she. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
And those opposed, say nay. And then we have it's, five in favor. So it's, I don't want to get too technical.
I got it.
Is that unanimous? Okay.
Yeah, that's that.
Let's not get. We'll have to look at it when I get home.
501.
Yeah. Okay. So our second order of business is to hear about a site plan application for some work at the Eno Memorial Hall. It's application 25-03. For those who don't know the address, it's 754 Hot Meadow Street. Adam, I can see you're sitting right there, but
I brought Adam right up to the table tonight, since
if you'd like to
he's
just
a team member, and I would really just defer to him and let him walk you through what those changes are at Eno.
And I want to hear a comment or two about the bocce court that's going to be removed. I never knew there was a bocce court.
Same.
There.
That was going to be my
Anyway.
comment.
And that's why we're going to remove it.
I know. Sad.
Okay, here we go.
All right.
That way.
So, for the record, Adam Kessler with the engineering department. The project tonight is at Eno Memorial Hall. It's actually 3 projects all at the same time, and they'll be phased. But our first order of business is with the entrances. I'll refer tonight to the north entrance. All this work is on the rear of Eno Hall. So the north entrance is currently the only ADA accessible entrance to Eno Memorial Hall. The south entrance has a set of stairs to get to a lower level.
And that's the bocce court.
And the bocce court is right near the south entrance label there that was installed many years ago and is not used from what we understand. So that'll be sacrificed as part of this project. The parking lot as it exists today, if anyone's gone down there, is a bit confusing, not exactly standard by any means. And staff's looked at this 100 different ways of trying to maximize the number of parking spaces, try to work within the existing pavement limits. And tonight we're kind of showing you our best approach. So this is a little color rendering of the final product that we're looking to do, except for this does not include the entrance project. This is just our parking lot and Station Street. So Station Street one-way to two-way conversion is our third project that's involved with all of this. So right now, we'll just touch on the parking layout right now, since that's up. We figured we'd simplify it to a single lane that you'd normally expect in a parking lot. Standard configuration, 24-foot aisle, standard spaces. This reduces the number of parking in the parking lot from 40 spaces today to 30. If we were going to restripe the lot, we do have to conform to current standards whenever you restripe a lot. And at any which way you do it, you end up with less spaces than exist today. So our goal was to make it a safer parking lot, even though we're going to reduce the number. But with the Station Street one-way to two-way project, we have an opportunity to add 4 parallel spaces right here adjacent to Eno. So the 10 losses, we make up 4 on Eno, which is right adjacent to some walkways. On Railroad Street, provided we have the funding, and I think we should. Our proposal right now is looking for 11 spaces angled parking at Railroad. Part of this project will include a little sidewalk and stair where the driveway is today that gets down to Railroad. If you ever noticed on the asphalt, there's nice little marks from people bottoming out on that driveway.
Oh, yeah. It's steep.
Yeah, we figured it's best just to get rid of it. So that we wanted to maintain that pedestrian connection there because of there's some dumpsters right down here. So we want to make sure we still had that component there.
Whose dumpsters?
I believe it's used by Eno as well as the restaurant and
Yeah.
other shops.
Those
I think
other
it's got
buildings use
shared
it.
kind of, yeah. And then parking on the north side of Station Street remains the way it is today.
So but you have to cut into the little hillside to create those 11.
Yes, we'll have, so this dark line here, you'll see right there, is a smallish retaining wall, probably 3 to 4 feet high.
Okay.
And that's how we establish those spaces down there. So then our walkways here tie into our entrance project. You'll see they're much wider than the existing, and that's one of our favorite components to this. Is right now, our walkways into Eno aren't the most inviting. They're a little narrow. In case of an emergency, to get a gurney into the lower level, it's a tight turn. It's very difficult. So our biggest, most important item we wanted to accomplish with this project was widening that entrance, making it more inviting, but also for emergency services. We also wanted to create a second ADA entrance on the south side because it's used as their senior center. It seems like we should probably have 2 ADA entrances. So this is the south side, which we will be working on first. This is kind of the primary phase of the project, where depending on how bid prices come in, no matter what, we will do the south side. We have gone out to bid once, and the prices were extraordinarily high. So we value engineered this side a little bit, but I'll get to that in a bit. So as you can see up here, this is the main walkway, which will replace this. So instead of being about 5 feet wide, we'll widen it to 8 and create a ramp down to that lower level, similar to what's on the north side today, just wider and more welcoming. The retaining walls won't be as high, so there'll be plenty of daylight down there. We'll establish another walkway up to the upper level entrance, which is right here. And that's where we found some savings. So instead of building these walls that you see today, unfortunately I didn't have a sketch ready for tonight, but this walkway will this walkway will, instead of being stairs, it'll just kind of meander down. So it'll be a much more welcoming, longer stretch, but cheaper than building 3 retaining walls.
But still have steps.
So our goal is to not have any steps. If we can, unfortunately, the bocce ball court's going to have to go. But if we do, it's going to be a short run of 4 steps or so.
So you're just showing us what's existing.
This is our proposal
Where
on this side, but we just made this change the other day from a value engineering standpoint, and the new walkway will come out here and come up.
That's great.
right here. It's very similar to the north side, which I'll show you next.
So will it eliminate the little,
Yeah, this will go away.
okay.
So it'll be very similar to this kind of layout, where you have that sidewalk that comes out. So again, we have a narrow sidewalk here, and we'll widen it to about 8 feet. The ramp will widen to 8 feet as well. And we tried to grade things out as much as possible and avoid retaining walls and kind of channeling people. And then we'll have a sidewalk that kind of runs in this general manner and meet up with, there's an existing walk that runs along the side of the building. And we'll align that with a little set of stairs here, and it'll come out to the parking lot. This will occur, our intent is to hopefully start work in the next couple months. If we have the funding, we'll do both sides. If we can only accomplish a portion of the project, we'll certainly do the south side first. Then our next, got a little ahead of myself. Then the next project that would occur is the Station Street work, which is we're converting it from one-way to two-way, something that's been a very important project for Main Street as well as in our center zone. We kind of look at that type of streetscape here. So that'll go out second, and then the parking lot will be third. If we can fit it in this year, that'd be great. If it has to wait till the spring, it will. Our thoughts with approaching all of this work in that manner is our entrance project is going to need some area for the contractor laydown, and we wouldn't want our contractor beating up a new parking lot. So let's let the parking lot as it exists today get beat up during those two projects. And then on the way out, we'll redo the parking lot. One of the things we've tried to look at as much as possible is pedestrian kind of circulation around here. And one of the options we always had was on Railroad switching this to parallel parking and adding a sidewalk in. That would reduce the parking count from 11 to about 6 to make that work. But understanding parking is premium in this particular area, we figured angled parking, as it's shown, is a good option. So happy to answer any questions.
I was wondering, where you did the parallel parking on Station Street, did you ever consider doing the angled parking there?
We did. We looked at that as well, and it seemed to just eat into that green space a little bit too much. Because you figure instead of being about 9 or 10 feet deep, it ends up jumping to about 11 or 12 feet deep. So the sidewalk configuration and eating into that green space, it just seemed a little bit too much.
Okay.
And we did after we looked at this particular configuration for the parking lot, that we were reducing in the imperviousness of the site a good amount and kind of returning a lot of grass to that area.
I just want to make sure I'm clear on this, but Railroad's, that's on the east side of the building, right?
Yes.
Okay. And with...
Railroad Station. Station Street is the one on the north side,
No, I thought...
right?
Stations.
No,
One,
it's the opposite.
Station's on the north
towards
side.
the trail is
North.
Railroad, isn't it?
Station Street's on the north side of the building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Railroad is
And the next
where
building
Weldon
to
is.
the left
Station is where the other
Police
hardware store
Right.
is.
That's why it's.
And that's actually, are you gonna ask Tony? Sorry.
No, I just wanted to be, I had the two backwards.
So my other question is just simply, so I was gonna ask you, because I noticed about removing the one-way sign, so you answered me there. But do we have any feedback from the businesses on Station Street? Is there any, I would think it's a benefit, but I'm curious if there's any
They're in
concern
favor.
about the amount of, they are.
Yeah, they kind of champion this project
Okay.
to happen. Yeah.
They really want it to be two-way instead of
Particularly
one-way.
the
for
two, the
years.
two-way, yeah.
Yeah,
They lose
they're-
parking by doing that, though.
they're also in favor of this plan. They've
They don't lose, because they only have the parallel parking to begin with. The only other parking they had was using the Eno Hall.
So it's wide enough, you've got parking here. And so you're gonna add a little width to allow for those.
Yes.
But
So
it's obviously must be wide enough for two-way. traffic.
Right. So it'll be a normal 26-foot wide road. So you see this darker area, tried to make it as clear as possible, but this darker area that you see in the pavement area, that's new pavement.
So you're widening.
So we are widening in that area. And then same with this darker green area is currently asphalt that'll be returned to grass.
That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that.
So, just walk me through this a little bit because I just want to make sure that there's an accessible entrance when there's construction on both the north and the south entrances. Tell me again which one you were starting first. Was it the north?
We'll
or the
start
south?
the south side first. So the north side is accessible
So that-
today.
Okay, perfect.
And that's where the handicap spots are today.
Yes.
And
And the ramp is.
yeah, so that'll be left alone, and the whole plan is nobody touches that north side until the south side's done.
Fantastic.
And until they get funding. Just kidding.
I hope we're able to do both.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So, is there an entrance into the building down, where is it? At the lower level for handicap?
So the lower level entrance is right in here.
So that's where there's some planting and steps. So you're gonna have a ramp thing. But where, so the people,
I'll go to right here. So
but this is existing?
no, that's all the darker lines and the colors are proposed.
But those are steps.
Right, and that's just what I was saying. We're in an awkward period where I'm making a change as I'm here telling you this is what we're gonna do.
So this just isn't an updated version?
Yeah, this isn't the most
Right.
current.
So that's gonna go, you're,
You're doing a ramp thing here,
So
like,
the ramp is here down to the lower level
Oh,
entrance, which is
okay.
right here on the building.
I see, okay.
And then this upper entrance, this is existing set of stairs,
Right,
is up here. And that
Yeah.
we'll get to with a longer sidewalk that'll connect
yeah, okay,
in
but
there.
this stays the way it
So those
is.
plantings will get wiped out. We'll have a little bit of a hillside there, and we're going to plant it with some shrubs as shown.
Just,
Yeah.
That seems more
To be
important to have a
clear
ramp.
about this, there is today 2 entrances, horizontal entrances into the south side. One low and one
high.
It's the middle of the building, but it really, it's the one that lines up with the front door.
Right.
You have to go inside and upstairs to get to that's the second floor. So it's the access to the existing lower level that's gonna have access as a result of.
is there an existing door here?
Yes.
Okay,
There is both sides of the building has
are
an
identical?
an
There are
entrance
doors on both
down
sides, right.
on the side. It's just that this one has exterior stairs that serve it.
And the north, I think the north side that's closest to the elevator,
Correct.
right?
Right.
Okay, so I have another just quick question, may or may not be related to this, but so if a person with a physical impairment actually gets into the building, which is sometimes challenging, and say they're going for a presentation like we had in the fall, and they're utilizing a wheelchair, it's very difficult to get out of the front of the building
Right.
onto that patio area because there's a bump in the door frame.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any intent to rectify that?
So we will be doing work in that whole area. Where at the threshold, there'll be a new concrete pad down there poured. I'll have
This is
to.
to the front entrance.
This is, yeah, in the
Oh, the
front.
front.
Just in
Yeah,
the
I'm
front,
talking the front.
where the,
Oh,
the
the front
big
of the building.
patio is.
Yeah.
No, we're not touching the front of the building with this project. We're just working on the backside of the building.
Could you look at the front of the building?
We could in the future
Yeah, it's not within their scope.
with
I mean,
more money.
Knowing nothing about. All right, I'll just leave it at that.
Well, yeah, I imagine it's not, ADA does not require you to be able to access like the front porch. It just probably means you'd be able to access the building, right?
Right, so one of the challenges we do have with not challenge, but a unique feature is it is a historic building.
Yeah.
So I should mention that this whole project has been run through the State Historic Preservation Office. We met out with them and
And I
talked
know
through-
that comes with additional
Yeah.
stipulations.
And certain considerations to materials and,
Right.
and what you do. So the front of the building itself, I'm not sure how much work we can do.
Is it the threshold that's the problem?
We can.
So
we
we
can
could
certainly
probably
look into
just
it.
take that on
That's what
as just send me an email and
Yeah.
we'll get it to town.
Alrighty,
It's like
just like that.
it's like the specific circumstance of like someone with a wheelchair trying to get out onto the front like
Yes.
patio
Yeah.
area.
I don't even know whether we know that it's a challenge.
Well, I mentioned it.
Okay, well, I'm not quite sure I can completely solve it, but I can pass it along and have a
The entrance
conversation.
has like just it has like a bump, so it's hard to
Yeah,
walk
I know what you're
patio
talking
there.
I'll send you an email.
Please.
Create just a tiny little,
Yeah, it would probably wouldn't be that hard. They could probably.
but I don't know if that interferes with how
Please,
the.
I'll do my best. You're not making fun of me.
No.
I think some rubber would probably do it, honestly.
Well, it's probably not simple because my recollection is the door was custom made for that opening. And also to look similar to the historic, door that was
Yes.
there originally, so.
They can't hear him.
Can I ask a question? I know this
No.
is not a public
Excuse me,
hearing.
it's not about here.
You're right. But I wanna know how that brick wall is, are they gonna tear down the brick wall? If they're gonna make the sidewalk wider over there? Cause I use that entrance all the time.
Are you gonna make the sidewalk wider near the brick wall? Thought popped in my head out of nowhere.
Near which brick wall? Exactly.
No, the north end, and yes, they are. The
North
north
end?
side, yeah, it's like double the size.
Yeah, so our intent over here is to
Yeah.
do a 8-foot wide walk
That becomes
and
much wider.
maintain that whole width
And this is-
into the entrance.
Slopes down
you would-
and they can be.
You had already said you were gonna try to regrade and make the walls shorter, and that was the question.
Yeah, so we'll have, the intent is to kind of have that 8-foot width all the way down and into the building.
And have daylight.
Yeah, so it doesn't make wind.
Yeah, I get it, get it. Okay.
We need to do a motion.
It's good. You can always just move the draft motion
Oh,
without reading. You don't always have to read the whole thing.
Does anybody have any other questions, comments for Adam?
can we have a bocce court?
The budget?
Actually-
Oh, what is the budget?
It feels a bocce court, no? Oh.
Sand and.
In Avon, one of the great attractions in the town of Avon is the bocce court at the Italian.
That's fine.
But, no,
Very nice bocce court.
It is, it's lit, it's clay, it's
No, I'm talking about the
heavily
Simsbury
used, they
bocce
have
court.
leagues that use it also.
I've never seen anyone
Yeah.
use it.
You don't go by there.
I know.
No, we're waiting for that.
But anyway, so,
I will make a motion to move forward the attached draft motion.
I'll second that.
so we're gonna read the draft motion.
Yeah.
We don't
said you don't
have
have to.
Joe said we don't have to.
You reference the draft motion shown on the screen, and it's in the staff report. So
I didn't realize that was the motion. Okay,
All this time, we've been reading.
I know.
any further discussion? How about it, did we have the motion, did we get a second?
Yeah, we did.
Tucker says.
Okay. So, we're ready for a vote then. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
And those opposed, say nay.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
5-0-1. Thank you, Adam.
that's six.
6-0.
Just 6.
See you out there.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah. Good work.
I remember being a alternate for like a very contentious issue, and I was sitting there stewing. Like, it's like, Mr. Chair, can I make a no?
Is that Tucker?
That was not me.
So it might be, so the second item might be easier just to work from the worksheet that you have in front of you as opposed to looking at the screen or anything. So after your last meeting, or part of your last meeting, you asked me to take the zoning regulation prioritization sheet and make some changes or updates to it to provide you some additional information, kind of estimated time and estimated staff effort and any other kind of comments that I thought might be helpful. Like for the food trucks, staff does not recommend revisiting the issue. So I tried to do it on, particularly on these individual items where, if you so directed, staff would do them in-house, and we could do them in, anywhere from 60 to 180 days, depending on complexity. But these are all kind of things and items that we that come out of the POCD that staff can handle, and I think it at this point becomes a question of how you as a group want to prioritize them, and then we could just kind of take them as we go. We'll do the first two in the next 60 days, if it's a 60-day item, and then, so I think that's the best way to do it. You can probably cross off a couple of, there's probably only about 14 of them in total. A full rewrite of the sign regulations, I would certainly say, just to hold that for the full rewrite.
Yeah.
Review
I
of.
think it's a priority because we get so many complaints, we get so many comments.
So I left the temporary sign stuff as a priority, and that's something we could do in a shorter time period.
I would
so
bring that to the group for discussion.
I just have a question. There are so many items here. If you give each one 60 days, it's gonna take more than a year.
So we can't do
How does that
13 of them. I need you to identify maybe 2 to 4
So you're not
in the next 6 months.
You're not saying we do them all this year?
No, absolutely not.
Okay,
No,
so I
no,
just-
no. We're also, as I think I mentioned, I think you weren't here at the last meeting, but so we have money in the budget for FY26, so after July 1, to do a full zoning regulation rewrite and update. Some of these things that we don't get to, and the bigger things, would be included in that, but that is a 12 to an 18-month process.
I see.
It will be, it will be fiery, and people will be into it, and you'll get lots of feedback, and it will be interesting. But these kind of one-off items that we can probably accomplish over the next 0 to 6 months.
So like dark skies.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, sorry, I totally interrupted you, go ahead.
Well, like dark skies, you said it's minimum effort,
Yep.
and you also said
So the dark skies one,
conservation and wetlands is already working on it.
that's right.
So, if we could add that, even if it's a 5th item, but I think it's important.
I agree with that.
Well, I think, first of all, we just need to go back to the origination of these items. They're in the POCD,
Yep.
which
Uh-huh.
is a 10-year plan. So
Yep.
it was intended that all of the objectives were going to spread out over time. So we're never expecting to have.
No, I don't think we ever expected we would be doing them all.
Right. But,
But where you prioritize them, we have some magnitude and capacity as staff to do some of them as we go along here, just like we did the housing stuff.
I would highly recommend that we do the ridgeline regulations, because I feel like it will kind of, I think there are a lot of people in the town with all the development and all that's been happening would feel better about what's happening if we made a concerted effort to, that's just my opinion, but
I agree.
I think it would be good to put something out there before we get any more development.
well, in prior conversation about this project and our restating objectives for the coming period, we talked about delaying review of the form-based code as it applies to the Silverman project in the south end of town. But it occurred to me that if there's reason to let that sit and not take it up until after there's resolution of the Silverman appeal, we might also want to leave this ridgeline thing too. I could be wrong about that, but I was thinking about that this afternoon. And then in addition, comparing and contrasting the PAD to PDD, I'm not sure if that overlaps at all with the Silverman thing, but I was looking at this as three things that, maybe we hang on to for, to put on our active list at the time that other stuff is resolved. So I don't think, while the appeal is still pending, I'm not sure that it upsets anything, but once we've changed, I would expect, well, I think a reasonable person would expect that if the Silverman appeal isn't successful, they're not leaving town. They have a huge piece of property, they want to build on it, so they're gonna be.
Oh, you should anticipate, if that does occur, another application that would be forthcoming.
Oh, for sure.
For sure.
But we're gonna get back into discussion about, and they're entitled to be considered under the regulations in place at the time they submit. And so if we haven't changed anything, they're gonna get to submit under the current regulation. Now, that isn't the worst thing in the world, but there may be opportunity to make life easier on everybody by some changes.
So your point, I would just address your first point, which is yes, and I think I said this at the last meeting, which is no, I would not undertake any review of the Hartford Simsbury form-based code while that litigation is pending.
And so my point.
Ridgeline, I think, is different.
That is different.
I think it's a little broader,
Yeah.
and it may or may not apply to that particular piece of property. I don't think it's singling that out at all.
And the residents have said it's a priority.
I feel as
Is
though
residents of
the
Simsbury
medium
said
staff effort seems like an well, maybe medium staff effort. I think that's a harder, much more complicated.
Yeah, so I was trying to estimate staff effort, not what a process might look like with public
Fair enough,
input
fair
and hearings, and because that's impossible. That's difficult
Yeah.
to judge.
That's because Ridgeline regulations, like that's. I feel like we're going to once you start down that path, there's going to be so many different niche circumstances and different things you're going to have to consider with that. I mean, I think that'd be a big undertaking. Is all. But I see what you mean. That it's medium staff effort, not necessarily.
That's
effort.
what I was trying to gauge.
Maybe it's all the more reason to get started on it then. Yep. But of course, that's my
Get started on what?
Ridgeline. It's going to take some time and it's going to be a process.
Well, I was looking back at the material that was taken from the POCD, and there's reference to the trap rock ridges and other potentially complicating factors. But I'm not. Don't mistake what I'm saying to give the impression that I'm not in favor of this. I think we should get after this, but I just don't want to go after it aggressively right now if that potentially compromises where we're going to be a few months down the road with the current owner of that big property down there. But I also had the same sort of issue with the PAD, compare and contrast to the PDDs. And, does that stir anything?
I don't think that does. I think that stands by itself. And again, the PAD is our flexible mixed use zone. That's Hartford Simsbury has its own, and so this would stand alone and allows for some flexibility. But it's kind of rigid, and that's why we haven't seen too much use of it.
Yeah,
So I
think
do
that's
think
a priority.
it may not be, but it is a flexible tool, and it is. I mean, that's for you guys to. I don't know that I have a strong argument on that one.
I have a question on Ridgeline. Does it apply to both east and west?
It could in the POC. Again, the language comes out of the plan of conservation and development, which does suggest both sides of the community. That those are both environmental assets.
Coming into town, leaving town.
Yes, so east and west. I know what you're talking about, but yes. Again, the eastern side has the more threat to development than
Yes.
the western side,
Right.
for sure.
And the east is more visible as far as the aesthetics of it.
So I'd like to put in a little plug for the community impact fiscal requirement. for certain projects. We talked about that briefly at the last meeting, and I know it keeps coming up at all of our public hearings and our meetings as well. If that is minimum staff effort, I think that would be an important piece to put in place.
I concur.
I also concur.
Which one was that?
The
Fiscal impact requirement.
And if you think about it, it would just be part of, it would just be an application submission requirement for a project of some threshold, which we'll work on to figure out what it is. But it is, I think it's a fairly simple change to our, site plan and rezoning submission requirements.
How did we leave it when we discussed, if we do have a large project, us actually doing I know you said you put out requests to all the different town departments, like actually bringing in an expert for when we hit a certain threshold, when a project is a certain size. I know we talked about it, but I can't remember where we landed.
So I don't know where we where we landed as a group. I think what I said to address it is that the way, what we call it, we've got language in the town code. It's called a complex project, right? And so that means that if a complex project comes in, the commission can choose to engage a third party expertise where there lacks particular staff expertise.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think where we landed was we have to be more cognizant of that early on. in the project.
You have to be more cognizant of
exactly
that.
where we landed.
But I do want to make sure that when it comes to complex projects, the purpose and the language of the third party review is not to do our own traffic study to the tune of $32,000. It is to hire a traffic expert to review an applicant's submission and identify any deficiencies, any suggested recommendations, and to review whether it kind of meets industry standards.
Yep, you're right.
It doesn't
I'm sorry.
substitute.
Now I remember.
Because when we do that and hire the third party person to review, the applicant pays for that.
Right.
And so you can't get the applicant to pay for two different traffic studies. It doesn't,
Right.
doesn't
Okay.
make sense.
What about septic capacity? How is that handled? If somebody's,
We rely on the Farmington Valley Health District.
you just say we're gonna build another 300 units, can it handle it? Is that?
Farmington Valley Health Department says, they determine, they tell the builder.
And they would say no to 300 units.
No, I'm not talking
So,
about
so
septic.
we have
I'm
a water-
talking about
so we have a wa-
public sewer.
Sure, we have a water sewer
capacity.
authority that
Right, so then,
we have
What
a
is-
water sewer authority who gets the application as part of the referral process and reviews our capacity and provides written staff referral comment back.
so have we turned down any for lack of capacity?
Not yet.
We have an excellent system.
We have plenty of capacity, quite frankly.
Well, I think the initial step, if we had capacity issues, would be to stop accepting from other towns. So other towns are using our system, and they're paying for it. As I
Can
understand
we-
it.
Do they have priority to use it? Or can we say, you can't say stop using it from Avon or Granby?
I don't know.
I think that would all be only if our capacity was running out, which I don't think is the case at the moment.
But we do it, we do engender that review of water sewer capacity.
Yeah.
We ask the same thing of Aquarian, in fact, when we've got a significant project, whether they have the ability to serve, so we do both those things. In fact, a developer usually is required to have a letter from both the WPCA and Aquarian that says the service is available. But the FIS piece, the fiscal impact study piece, and is a fairly simple one, and we could probably do that fairly quickly.
Perfect, great.
And I think that's a good thing to have
Yeah.
as a requirement. Everybody, that way, any developer of any project that has significance knows that they
Right.
have to prepare fiscal impact study as part of their submission documents, and that it'll be built into their own development
And the
cost
public
process.
knows what that
Yeah,
is.
absolutely, right, that's right.
Do they? Is there a fairly common definition for what fiscal impact statement covers?
I mean, we would just define it. I think lots of folks know. People are always asking what's it cost in services and those kinds of things, and we can get
So
that
there isn't a
education
standard
out there.
that we're gonna need to.
What?
we can wing it.
No.
Involve school capacity?
A fiscal impact study would typically include an evaluation of school impacts. Yeah, it would.
Tony, were you gonna say something?
No, I was just gonna, I think we've reached consensus on 2.
Could we add erosion issues
Oh, yeah, that was the other one.
with large lot development?
So that's great. That's great
Land
that you're adding. I mean, these are 3 that kind of staff thought we could handle fairly within several months.
Can you do one more, or is that it?
What'd you have in mind, sir?
I thought the electrical.
I was just gonna say.
Yeah, we can do that too.
Only
Seemed
because it's
pretty-
based on state
Is
code.
that what you're talking
That's
about?
already written. I already have that written.
No takers on map revisions to remove old zoning districts?
That's more complicated. We
No.
do have to
No
fix
takers
that
on
though.
that.
We have to do
No.
that. It's
Why, I don't, could you just touch on that for a minute?
Yeah.
I don't understand why it's so complicated. If you just, identify the defunct unused
sure.
labels that are.
So
not
we
on
have-
the map,
we
you
have-
just take them out of
We
the-
have parcels, property that is mapped for zoning districts that don't exist anymore in text. So the RD, the apartment, AZ, the apartment zone, there are people who live in those zones, but those zones don't have any language in our zoning regulations. So we would have to ascribe a zone, essentially recreate or rewrite a new zone for them to fit them into in order to make them conforming.
They couldn't just be like
We could go-
grandfathered into an like.
So they are, right? So they are grandfathered, right? But we get questions all the time from banks and finance companies about what do you mean it doesn't have a zoning district? How am I gonna, so it raises some financing issues, particularly on, most of them are kind of higher density developments. So, there's condo complexes and some apartment complexes that just, so I
So how many are there that are non-conforming?
there's,
Pre-existing?
there's 6 to 10 projects to 12 projects. So,
isn't
but
that
it
something
equal,
we can do when we're rewriting?
we'll do it as part of the rewrite.
Exactly,
Yeah,
that
we
makes
will.
sense to me.
And I think that's right, because we'll need a mapping element as part of that too.
So yeah, it would just go into the. That's what
It would, we should do that then.
George, do you have space for one more little project?
Hang on.
With I do feel strongly about the dark sky.
So that's coming.
Component, like-
So Dark Sky is coming to you from its own applicant,
Great, but
and then
It's underway.
Yeah, I don't think that's something zoning has to.
it's almost
Okay.
done. When I say it's almost done, it's almost done. Well, the draft is done.
Oh, jumping at me.
I like sitting on this side. It's very fun to watch.
but okay, that's fine. I withdraw my comment.
Say it out loud. What do you
I have nothing else to say. It's coming our way.
It's a safe space.
George,
I'm sure it's a public hearing. It's a public meeting.
add the
Not a safe
Meadowood
space.
rezoning as the subcommittee already did the report. We've already given it to the Board of Selectmen. Is it something that we could just bring to their attention that, hey, this is also in our report?
I didn't catch your
The
first part.
rezoning for Meadowood, you said it requires Board of Selectmen interaction. So if it's not too much on your end for staff, is that something that we could just bring to their attention? Hey, zoning's talking about this as it relates to the POCD, and it was just in our subcommittee report as a priority.
I think the best way to handle that is to just for me to brief the town manager on the issue. And again, if you remember what the issue is that Meadowood is several hundred acres and it was originally zoned for the residential development that it was, right? So that's
But
we
is
actually
it
created
28?
its own district for that.
But we have the 28 acres that are separate.
But the town owns all of that property, although it has different limitations in certain different parts that are associated with some deed restrictions and some open space commitments. It just simply doesn't match what the current zone is, and that's why it came out of the POCD. But we don't know it. The Board of Selectmen would have to be involved in that conversation, and so
So would that
It's
go with what we were just
that's
talking
not an easy
about?
one.
Okay, all
That's
right.
what the-
Have a conversation.
It's not because it's
All right.
It's also not urgent, right?
and it's not urgent.
We're not doing
It's
anything with
there's
it.
no harm to
It's not
to
urgent, but
to
we were
the zone.
talking about it in the frame of reference of we want more housing and how do we get about it and
I
what
know, but you're talking about changing it from R40 to something else.
that are.
The whole place is R40.
No.
No.
It's zoned.
The zoning map
Housing.
says it.
It's a housing overlay.
Yeah.
Special,
It was a special zone for that project.
HOD.
Housing
Alright.
overlay district.
Thank you. I'll take that off.
But yeah, I would
See?
do that.
well. So how many,
Try to say something.
You're waiting.
how many acres are still in that zone? 660, I mean, 600? I mean,
Whatever
not
the whole
600.
it's
In the whole Meadowwood?
The HOD zone.
yeah,
How
it's
many?
385 acres
Yeah.
or I don't know the exact number now, but
Okay.
all that, all of it.
Does some of it include the solar panels?
No,
No.
No, that's
No,
not there.
that's-
Further down.
Those are separate.
Yeah.
What was the last? Erosion.
Yes.
Erosion and the.
All right, so Ridgeline, physical impact study, submission requirement, the EV charger, parking requirement, and erosion and sediment control for
Dark skies.
lots.
Dark skies.
No, but we're gonna let that come to you from
Okay.
others. Because I'm not
Oh,
controlling
and
that one.
FIS.
Yeah, I got
Yeah,
that.
we have that.
All right, so we're gonna work on 4
Wait,
in the
I
near
missed
term.
one,
Okay, but
Ridgeline.
just to be a pain, or I'm not being a pain, when is that thing coming from conservation about the dark skies?
So they're all hung up on a particular project
I
right
know-
now.
I know they
They're
are.
having, they're
But I
having
guess
a little
that's-
bit difficult.
I
to
guess
get
that's
out of
kind of my
it.
point.
We will force that forward in the next 45 days. How's that sound?
I will not forget. I'll be back.
At risk of slowing the process, could you just repeat the 4 things?
Yeah, so we're gonna begin work on ridgeline regulations, submission requirements to include a fiscal impact study for projects over X, and we'll get into the thresholds, we'll figure that out. It would be a revision to the parking requirements related to EV infrastructure, so electric vehicle infrastructure requirement, and then an introduction of erosion and sediment control requirements for all lots over some number. Again, we don't require them for large lot, single families, and some other things. And yet have a lot of problems with, those big lots. All right, we
So
can do
those
it.
4 are gonna start, and now about the issue of the project, rewrite the zoning requirements.
Yes.
And the need for a consultant.
Yes.
Since there is no further discussion on the need for the consultant, is there a reason not to do anything about that until the money's available? We need to start a process to identify.
So we do need to start a process, and so the first part of that process is for me to draft a request for a proposal, an RFP,
Great.
and I open that up this week, and I will bring that to you in draft form.
My
for
point is not to question your.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
your-
It's okay.
The pace of your work. It's just, it belongs on here as number 5. We're starting that now. Or we started it yesterday, or a month ago. But it's in motion.
Yeah,
It's gonna
yeah.
be in motion for the next year and a half,
Yes.
so.
So, but we need to have you as a group need to have a conversation about how we manage that process, whether this body manages the process or whether you impanel an ad hoc committee of others, or you have to think about how you might want to do it.
Which project was
So
that?
we have funding to do a rewrite of all the zoning
Oh, okay.
regulations in toto, $120,000. And we would hire a consultant to do that, to do the work.
Yep.
And we would manage the process.
One more question. Do you think it's realistic for you to complete these tasks by November? Say, my concern is that this is an election year, and I expect there'll be some turnover on the board and the commission. So I'd like to make sure that we have enough time to work to complete this task?
I'm confident for
Okay.
these 4 items, we can be done in the summertime.
Okay,
Great.
great,
100%, yes.
okay.
The only one that makes me a little nervous is the ridgeline stuff. I'm not. I mean, there's an issue to frame there and an understanding and impact and height and distance and Tucker's right. That one is going to be the most complicated of the 4.
All right, good.
So what is the process here? Do you do work? Do we
So I will do we usually
review the regs?
our approach typically is to develop for each issue essentially a white paper explanation of the issue, and that may or may not include draft suggested regulations that go along with it, or an examination of best practice regulations from our neighbors and our sisters who might have that. So staff will do all that review and come to you with options essentially.
And then we invite public.
And then we'll have a formal application, and then you'll have a public hearing and do those kinds of things. Or we could get public input before that, even get into the full process. Some of the FIS and the EV and the erosion and sediment are going to be fairly straight and regular. I don't think they're going to be complicated. Ridgeline is going to require a little
Any
bit more
change
thought.
the text to our regulations requires a public hearing.
Yeah.
Well, these aren't necessarily all different nights, but they probably.
Yeah, full public hearing process with all that stuff. Absolutely.
Actually, when we did it for the 4 things we worked on late last year.
These are going to stand alone. We won't batch these. These will all go on their own because they're completely
We
they're
batched the public
unrelated.
hearings, and it was a little
Yeah.
much. It worked.
Okay.
Do you have any updates for us?
On what?
Any commercial? Nothing?
So I do have there's 2 items for receipt because we don't do that, but I do like to tell you that you do have 2 public hearing items for your next May meeting, whatever that is, May 5th. So you'll have the expansion at the Performing Arts Center. So there's an addition kind of back of the Opera House kind of meeting facilities and open office space over there. So that will that's a special exception in the floodplain. As it sits in the floodplain, it requires a special exception. That's why it has to have a public hearing. And then there's a sign request on Hot Meadow Street, a property that Mr. Antonio owns. If you remember in your zoning regulations, for any parcel, all parcels only get 1 sign, and for singular parcels that have multiple businesses, they have to come to you for a special exception to ask for additional freestanding signage. And so that's what that is. I don't have any
That's-
other.
What? Where Sunrise?
Dunkin', yeah, Sunrise and Dunkin' Donuts
Yeah.
and
No update on Wagner Board?
no, the same update is I'm just waiting to hear from the state on the brownfield.
But aside from all that, there's a great improvement in the center of Simsbury. I noticed today as I was coming tonight,
Cleaned it up.
the building that had the fire some months ago.
Oh,
is
yes.
finally-
Yeah, they demolished.
Yeah, it's
There's still a
demo.
pile of bricks, some masonry stuff to be
Very
taken
clean.
away, but it's only about
Demo.
4 feet high and it's in the middle. So it's entirely a view that hasn't been there for 100 years.
Are you proposing to keep the view?
I understand the owner's interest in getting the building, but
Yes.
he is older, so he has to be.
Yes, thank you, George.
Thank you, George.
That gets us to the end of our agenda for tonight. Does anybody have anything else they were desperate to bring up that's not on the agenda? Then how about a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
And a second?
I will second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. It's unanimous. We're adjourned and it's 7:55.
Exactly.
For over 40 years, SCM
has been the voice of our town,
bringing us together through local programming,
education, and live broadcasts.
SEM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community,
ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings, and celebrating milestones
like our high school graduations.
But today, SEM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions.
And it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SEM receives less revenue,
even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open,
continues to educate our youth,
and keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SCM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events. They're actually preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us.
Join us in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.
Together we can ensure that SCM continues to thrive
for generations to come.
Visit our website
or scan the QR code on your screen to make your donation.
Every contribution
counts.
Thank you for supporting Simsbury Community Media,
where your town,
your schools,
and your government
come together.